and welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. So as we get going for today, we have a new and interesting live to cover that was requested by none other than you guys. Chris, hey, hope you are well. So we're going to get into the topic of the day in due course. But of course, we must begin, as it were, with our usual startup, which is to remind everybody that the channel is kept going by you guys. So please do make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, do all of the things to improve the terrible algorithm that we have to contend with in order to let TikTok know that we really are real and do exist. And with that said, I will remind you that on this channel we have but one rule, which is don't be rude. We have a lot of different people and cultures that join the channel, and as a result we do prefer to keep things nice. We do this for our own interest, education and amusement, and we really don't need conflict and issues. That said, of course, you may agree or disagree with any of the topics. It's entirely up to you. We do not necessarily promote nor deride any of them. We merely do it for the fun factor. So with that said, yeah, make sure you do all the good things, and I will do my best to bring in all the interesting things. And feel free to comment. We do have one preference with our live, which is to say that we generally only allow known people to actually join the live, simply because we've had a number of rather bad trollage in the past, and we don't like that at all. So sometimes we don't let people onto the live, not because we think you are bad in any manner or form or to be insulting, but simply because we are very careful who we allow on, and it's known people that generally get allowed. So that said, we've been talking about a number of different things, and one of the things that we need to touch on, if you will, is fate. What is fate? Now, in different countries and cultures and all the rest of it, we have a number of different views . And we are going to have a look at a few of them, because by and large, the modern view is not necessarily what the ancients viewed it as, shall we say, in that regard. It seems that our understanding of the word in the modern times comes from a very specific cultural viewpoint around the Mediterranean areas, which wasn't true of a lot of people, and there are reasons for it. And it does in fact bring up issues that people have where they say, but what would be the point of, because if there's nothing you can do about, then etc., etc. And we will get into all of that. And with fate, one of the first and most important topics to talk about in terms of that, of course, is going to be omens or warnings of fate, which is pretty cool. Now, I don't know how much all of you guys are into your movies, but one of the very good horror movie series that was a big favorite of mine back in the day was Final Destination. I don't know if you guys have seen it. If not, and if you're into horror and such, you must absolutely give it a look. A very, very good set of movies, and the basic premise of the movies, which is pretty simple really, was that, thank you so much for the likes, Nazreen. Basically, you had a group of teenagers that managed to escape death. But of course, because they were fated to pass on in a specific time and place, and in a specific way, therefore death was hunting them. And one by one, of course, and in all of the proper horrific manners, he got his way. And it's kind of become a standard joke by me that you never ever drive behind a truck loaded with logs, because that's a Final Destination truck. But it shows and demonstrates the view of what fate is in the modern age, very much so. But as I say, that's not necessarily the case. So we are going to start ourselves off by looking at what fate might be, and have a chat about the possibilities around that, and then with that then talk about omens, because what are omens? And this links in turn, as you can imagine, to the idea of predicting the future. Is it possible? Can it be possible? Should it be possible? Does it matter? Maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe not knowing is better. All of these things are points of personal opinion, shall we say? And we will absolutely have a look at all of them. But we need to begin by saying, what on earth is fate? And where do we even get the word fate from? So, essentially, your fate is the course of your life, the outcome of a situation that generally is seen as outside your control, to a very large degree. The inescapable end. And of course we know that in Greek and Roman mythology, which is where we get our view of this, there were three sort of, I don't know if you could quite call them goddesses. They were sort of something off to the side, neither one thing nor another, that were known to the Romans as the Fates, Fate, which presided over the birth, life, and death of every human being. And they were often depicted as spinners of thread, your life being the thread. And so you had the one who carded and spun the thread, one that measured the thread, and one that cut the thread at the end. So the three fates were Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, those that decided. Now we know that this was an idea that was had even amongst the Chthonic tribes, like the Vikings, who spoke of the three Norns, who also, of course, wove your life. But was there anything to it? Because now here's the big deal. If your fate is something that is destined to happen, and it will happen regardless, then knowing what's coming is pointless. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever to know, because you can't do anything about it anyway. Whereas if you could change it by knowing it, then absolutely there would be good reason in that regard. And of course we see it used in a lot of different countries and cultures in language, that you sealed your own fate, or it was fated to happen. We know that fatum in Latin and in early sort of Roman viewpoints, the idea of destiny, but of course it comes from the word fari, meaning to speak. In other words, the idea that what will be has been said. And of course the question is, by whom? Who said? And I suppose the answer is the gods. Perhaps. They speak of tempting fate, doing something risky or dangerous. But what can it really mean? It is the will or principle or determining cause by which things in general are believed to come to be as they are, or for events to happen as they do. Destiny in a sense, but directed destiny. Is that a good description? People will say that no matter what you do in life, your fate will be the same in the end, that things will end as they do. Is that true? It's very, very hard to determine exactly without knowing, of course, and part of the point of fate or fortune is that you don't know, that because of this it's unavoidable. You're stuck with it. People will say that ultimately God is the master of all people's fate and the master of your soul. All futures are held in his hand. So what will be, which kind of implies that no matter what happens to you, it was meant to, which seems in some ways a little bit unkind, can we say? Perhaps, maybe. Difficult to say. We know that in destiny, you find that life is a balance between your fate and your choice. And fate sets the stage, but perhaps choices can change it and shape the idea. Others will say, no, fate is what it is. You think that you choose, but it just, you have no real choice. People will talk about you are destined to meet the one that you will love, that you are meant to connect no matter the odds. And of course, out of that, you get the idea of soulmates, the idea of your spiritual connections that bring you together, that it was always meant to be, and that if you watch the signs and serendipity, you will be led to the one, which is very romantic, I suppose, but doesn't always seem to work out. Of course, you then have the problem thing of free will. You see, if fate is predetermined, you're merely a passenger. Things happen to you, it goes on, and what will be, will be. Whereas if you have free will, then you are active in your future, and your choices determine your future. Which is it? Or is it a combination of both, that certain things are meant to happen, but then how you deal with them is how they will turn out in that regard? Is fate positive or negative? Well, it seems to be both and. If you take it as a predetermined thing, it's very negative, because no matter what you do, it will just happen. Accept your fate, which is a very negative view of such things. On the positive side, I suppose, you can also even say that if free will is total, not even God can command fate. While your life is part of a plan that God has, your decisions can change it. And free will implies, therefore, that you are allowed to make your choices, even if they are bad. So there is that aspect. People will say that in terms of sort of linguistics, by and large, a better word would be destiny, which is more positive than fate. I think perhaps because we speak of the end as being fatal, we have a negative view. And yes, it's due to how the linguistics have developed that we have these words. So perhaps destiny is a better choice, if you will. But nevertheless, it seems that for some people, at least in the past, fate was absolute and inescapable, that it was the spinners that decided on what would be, how long you lived, and what would happen. So the Moirai in Greek mythology, personified in Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, the Parche in Roman mythology, which of course took a lot of their stuff from the Greek, with Nona, Decuma, and Morta. And yes, Morta, the goddess of death, Mortis, we still find that in our English language, mortuary, for example. It all goes back to Morta, the Roman goddess of death. In Norse mythology, the Norns, where you had the past, present, and future, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, that lived at the foot of the world tree Yggdrasil, and wove the web of the weird. But with the Norns, of course, you had a lot more possibility, dependent on who you were. If you were able to perceive enough of the weird, you could move it, you could change it. And of course, those who had the most power were the sorcerers, who were seen as manipulators of the weird. And that meant you could change things. Now, it was argued that even the gods were bound by fate. And one of the very reasons that Odin, for example, absolutely wanted to gain the power of the runes was that the runes are the understanding of the web of weird, the path of destiny. And by mastering the runes, he was therefore able to master the web of weird and change what is essentially destiny. So, different views in different cultures. The Greeks said that even Zeus could not change what the fates had decreed, and he could not, for example, save his son Sarpedon from death because it was fated, decreed by the fates. Gods like Zeus, in order to determine a hero's fate, or indeed among the Egyptians with Anubis, they were often depicted using scales, weighing the destiny of an individual against some standard, such as the feather of truth from Ma'at. Now you have the balance of fate and free will, the tragic view. And we see this a lot in Greek tragedy, the idea of the tension between human choice and predetermined destiny. Self-fulfilling prophecies like the story of Oedipus Rex, the hero's very attempt to escape his fate, such as fleeing his home and everything, is what led him to fulfill it. So by attempting to avoid it, he only made it come quicker. The idea of a double fate, some heroes like Achilles had a choice between two preset paths, a long and anonymous life or a short and glorious one. And once the choice was made, the outcome became fixed. In Mesopotamia, fate was a decree of the gods recorded on the tablets of destiny. And mortals, of course, used divinations to try and determine these divine intentions and maybe even try to avoid them. In China, you had the concept of the mandate of heaven, Tian, suggesting that fate was a moral order. Success depended on aligning one's actions with the way, the Tao, blending divine will with human morality in order to have a good fate. In Egypt, you had the idea of balance, truth and order embodied in the goddess Ma'at. A person's ultimate fate was determined in the afterlife based on how well they maintained their cosmic balance in life. Now, in philosophical views, you had different ideas as well. The Stoics viewed fate as a rational, ordered causal chain, and that while you cannot change external events, true freedom lies in your internal response to what is fated. And of course, when we say somebody is very stoic, it comes from the philosophical practice of Stoicism from the Greeks. The Epicureans, on the other hand, were quite opposite to the Stoics, and they challenged the idea of divine fate, arguing instead for a world governed by chance and human agency. Now, which one you choose naturally depends on you and your beliefs and religions. But out of the idea of that, we gain the concept, if you will, of there being a line to the future, things that are, at the very least, most likely to happen. And in a way, if you have ever read your own horoscope in the newspaper, that's exactly the modern equivalent of trying to determine your fate. You are looking to see what might be, and I suppose then either working harder to get it, or if you don't like it, working away from it. Now, all of this comes down to the idea that there can be a form of prediction. Now, sometimes it is a deliberate prediction, such as gaining the advice of an oracle, using your star signs or sun signs, reading the tarot, casting the runes, all of those such things. Sometimes it's a passive thing whereby the thing comes to you. The idea of don't walk under a ladder, you will cause bad faith. If a black cat crosses your path, when natural events occur, solar eclipses, strange weather, artificial, such as the interpretation of the flight of birds, these things can act as portents, prognostics, forewarnings, indicating what might come. So omens have, for a great deal of human history, been very, very important. And I remember a fascinating discussion I had with a very good friend of mine who was one of the top biblical scholars in the world and a priest, who said to me that the future is something you should never attempt to affect. It's God's choice, God's will. To the degree that he actually said to me, he will never ever pray for anything anymore. To him, the correct thing was that whenever you pray, all that you do is praise God and say, let your will be done, and then leave it entirely in God's hands. The moment that you start to ask for anything, you are essentially bargaining with God. Now, whether or not you agree with him or disagree with him, whether or not you think that might be a true thing or maybe too far, I don't know. But there are millions of methods of doing these things. We will talk about a few as we go along, and some of the ancient ones and some of the modern ones. And they are absolutely very, very popular. So what are the key aspects of omens? Well, they are about prediction. They suggest either explicitly or implicitly, either directly or vaguely, what might happen, be it positive or negative for a person or a group or an event. They are absolutely something requiring interpretation, so people look for them, auspices, portents, signs, or create them through an augury, a fortune teller, in short, in order to try to understand destiny. Now, you get two kinds. You get good omens and bad omens. And the good ones you would want, I assume, and the bad ones you would hope to avoid. Some examples of such things is that there is a story in Roman mythology of a dream that the emperor had where Jupiter kicked the emperor. And it was seen as an omen that the emperor would be assassinated. According to Suetonius, in his books the lives of the Caesars. So it might be a bad one. A particular win for a team over another might be seen as a very good omen for future success. And we see this in sport all the time, where I know that if South Africa has to face the All Blacks, how things have gone prior to, both for either the South African team or the All Blacks, is very, very important and examined and considered very, very carefully, simply because of the concern as to whether or not it's a good or bad indication of what might be the final outcome. Now, with that said, omens were believed to be divine messages or signs from the gods, communications from the spirit, indications, if you will, from the universe, dependent on the particular country, culture, and religion of the time. Celestial events like eclipses were very serious ones. Animal behavior, such as the flight of birds or the actions of certain sacred animals. In Rome, they had sacred geese that were watched very carefully as they predicted things. Natural phenomena like lightning. If an animal was born in any way malformed, of course, that was a very serious thing as well. And very often, these signs would be interpreted by specialists. And we know in South Africa today, you can go to an Isangoma and have the bones thrown for you, which is exactly the same thing. And it was done in many cultures all over the world. Now, these specialists guided crucial decisions in politics, warfare, daily life, and it showed a very deep belief in the divine intervention or the spirit world intervention in shaping human life and destiny. There wasn't really an idea of the gods being separate in any manner or form. They were very active all the time and did all sorts of stuff all the time. They were a busy bunch. And even today, that is very much considered to be the case. You got your signals from whichever spirit or deity you believed in. In Rome, the augury of Rome was very, very important, observing bird flights, calls, pecking, the way it acted. We know that you had the Oracle of Delphi, the most famous of the Greek diviners that would give important decisions to very, very powerful and important people. And it was done in all kinds of ways. You had very popular in the Middle East and in Rome and other places, the idea of examining the entrails, especially the liver, of sacrificed animals that would tell you all kinds of things. Cloud formations even could be used. And the whole point was to understand the greater forces that were at work and influencing the world so that you could make good choices and actions. And we know that not only was it used for everyday choices, when or if to go to battle was even considered to be massively important, and people would avoid doing it purely on the grounds of the need to be prepared and to do it right. Certain cultures had special symbols, others looked for patterns. There were all kinds of things that were used in different ways in different times. We've spoken of the Greek and Roman methodology. We know in Hinduism, the astrologers and seers, the Jyotishakas, offered guidance through rituals for other rituals and for journeys and more. The Abrahamic traditions, however, generally discouraged any of that, viewing it as all superstition, and that you can only rely on God's direct word or revealed truth through acknowledging the historical prevalence. So the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims avoid, or at least are supposed to avoid, anything to do with that. Not everybody follows that. So you get your good omens and you get your bad omens. You do sometimes get neutral ones, which are transformative omens, signs whose meaning changes based on context, whether they appear on the left or the right side of an observer. Variable ones where you get interlocked ones, so a thing will have one meaning, but in the presence of something else will have a different meaning, and attempts to force meanings. So you may cast the runes to see what will come, but by binding certain runes together into what is called a bind rune, you can try to cause that future to occur. So absolutely you have that as well. Now, common varieties of natural type things are animal behavior, how birds fly, if they enter a house, how they will eat their food and peck, howling dogs, which is often considered to be very bad. The movement of insects. If a butterfly enters your home, a guest is coming. Moths and black butterflies, however, are often seen as warnings of doom, bad luck, or even death. We know that celestial events were absolutely a top-ranking one. Solar and lunar eclipses, Halley's Comet, shooting stars, they are linked to big events like the birth or deaths of kings and significant social shifts. Thunder in winter, unexpected rain or the direction of the wind. We even see this in common language that's sort of stuck around, as to say things like, we'll see which way the wind blows on that, or there's a change in the wind, which is exactly where this comes from, the idea that this implies that it warns you of things. Flowers blooming out of season or trees dropping fruit unnaturally shows that there is a disruption to the natural order that needs to be restored and balances. You've probably, if you've ever read Shakespeare, have read Macbeth. And if you have, then one of the most famous lines from Macbeth is from the witches, where they say, By the pricking of my thumb, something wicked this way comes. So if your thumbs become itchy, something evil is coming. If your palms become itchy, you're about to get something, possibly money. If your ear itches, someone is speaking about you behind your back. Now, of course, birth defects were considered to be very, very bad, warnings of divine displeasure. In animals, it was really bad, and if it was in humans, you were really on the edge, and the only thing to do was to rush out and try and get some sacrifices in to please the gods, because something had gone very wrong. Broken objects is another common one. We see it even in modern culture. Breaking a mirror, 7 years bad luck. Spilling salt, a lamp extinguishing during prayer, are often considered to be very bad omens. Unexpected sounds, strangely enough, are also considered to be pretty important. Unexplained knocks, the ringing of bells, a ticking sound with no clear source, seen to be a warning of death. And you've heard of the Death Watch beetle, which is so named because you can rarely ever see them, but you absolutely hear their clicks. So we name things according to these beliefs. And the whole point of this is to manage your future, or in many ways, make sure the gods are kept happy, keeping the Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods, because when they're not happy, your life goes to hell. In medieval Europe, finding a horseshoe or an iron key was very lucky, but meeting a priest on the road, weirdly enough, was often feared as a sign of misfortune. I suspect, being very, shall we say, cynical about it, there is a fair possibility that it was seen as a sign of misfortune because most priests in medieval Europe were itinerant beggars. So it was bad luck because they were going to ask you for money, and not giving something, alms, as it was called, to the priest, would be a very bad thing. So you were guaranteed to be out of pocket. In India, observing whether or not different body parts throbbed or shook, or the way milk overflows during boiling might indicate prosperity or lack thereof. In Buddhism, you have the 4 omens: an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and a recluse, which were the sights that led Prince Siddhartha to renounce his worldly life and therefore become a holy man. So yeah, they're big deal throughout history and are very, very important. But do we still believe in such things? Well, we've seen varying varieties of this kind of thing. In the modern age, we have things like apantomancy, the interpreting chance encounters with objects or animals, such as a black cat crossing your path or finding a lucky penny. You have your intuitive self-reflection, analyzing patterns and recurring coincidences, the idea of synchronicity, signs of a personal legend or future trajectory in that regard. And then, of course, you have omen journalism, which people do to record unusual events or significant gut feelings to identify patterns over time and meditate on their potential meanings. So yes, we do this. We also, weirdly enough, find it in things like the I Ching, using yarrow stalks or coin flipping to generate hexagrams that offer philosophical and cosmic guidance. And of course the famous Book of Changes is used as literally that. The trigrams or hexagrams bring their meanings in order for you to understand more. There is, in some cases, extreme stances against. So in Judaism, in Islam, and in Christianity, you are absolutely forbidden to do any of this, and all you're doing is proving that you do not trust God. So you've got to be somewhat careful, dependent on your religion. Now, whether or not the events are avoidable depends on the cultural, religious, or philosophical framework through which the omen is viewed. Historically and across various traditions, omens are often interpreted as warnings rather than fixed destinies, implying that if you do the right things, you can alter the outcome. Now, this isn't always the case. In ancient Mesopotamia, they were signs from the gods to communicate their intentions. They were specifically considered not to be unavoidable, but you could have a cat walk across your keyboard like that, which may have a meaning. Hello, Munchkin. Did you just decide to do that? Well, there you go. I had a cat cross my path. Maybe that means something, but it wasn't a black cat, so maybe we're good. So in ancient Mesopotamia, they were not considered to be certain. They were warnings so that you could absolutely avert whatever is coming through the appropriate actions, like change in behavior, doing certain things, going and making sacrifices to the gods or certain rituals and prayers. In ancient Assyria, if a king received an evil omen, he might go into hiding and place a decoy king on the throne, hoping the predicted misfortune would strike the false king instead. So clearly they were taken very seriously. Some teachings in Islamic tradition suggest that if one feels the sense of a bad omen, they should proceed with their plans, but place all of their trust in God to dispel negative effects and pray harder, which implies an attempt to change things. In ancient Rome, it was again the God's way of telling you what they wanted. So we saw in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar that certain of the characters who were considered arrogant ignored the omens leading to their doom, which suggests that the events might have been avoidable had the warnings been heeded. We know again in Macbeth that he was warned that he would succeed until the forest reached the castle of Dunsinane, and we know that the forest was quite some distance, and he took it to mean that he was fine. Nothing would ever happen to him, except until the army that came to stop him used branches from the trees to disguise the size of their army as they approached. And so, in a way, the forest did come to Dunsinane, his castle, and when it did, they attacked and defeated him, proving that his fate was set. In Indian traditions like Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, bad omens often signify that the path will be difficult or that misfortune is possible, and rituals or changing in plans are common methods used to counteract or avoid the negative outcomes. So a lot of people actually did say that, yes, you can generally. So this gives us the idea that omens are generally conditional, they are warnings, and that the fate is avoidable. But with determinism, fate is fixed. And if an omen is a sign of an unchangeable fate, the event will occur no matter what you do to try to stop it. So it's merely, I suppose, the gods going, nyeh, nyeh, and there you have it. Why? I don't know. Modern psychological interpretations also weigh in on this, and the idea is that omens are often viewed as a form of intuition, and that if a person really believes a bad omen is unavoidable, their resulting anxiety might actually cause the negative outcome, and therefore it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You cause it by your belief. So because you're so focused on what might happen, you end up in a car accident because you're distracted, thus making the bad arrive in that regard. Seeing an omen might make a person more cautious, on the other hand, through hypervigilance, and therefore you avoid the dangers that you would otherwise have ignored. So it might be a good thing too. Is it? We don't yet know. Now, omens are still widely believed in modern times and across varying cultures and demographics, often manifesting in superstitions or spiritual interpretations of natural events. And while formal belief has declined in most societies, 2/3 of Americans hold at least one paranormal or superstitious belief, including the interpretation of signs. And let's be fair, you really wouldn't have as many things in the newspaper like your star signs and such if people didn't believe in such things. So very clearly, people still do. Belief in omens is not confined to a single group at all, but is influenced by culture, religion, and psychology. South Asia, including India and Pakistan, has a very high prevalence of belief regarding lucky or unlucky days, natural signs, things that you shouldn't do as it will cause bad luck, like cutting your nails at night. East Asia, including China, Japan, and South Korea, avoids things like the number 4, because the kanji for 4 is very, very similar to the kanji for death. So just as in Western society we think 13 is an unlucky number for all kinds of reasons, in East Asia it's the number 4. So you may take that as you will. We know, for example, that one thing you never ever do is take your chopsticks and stick them upright in your bowl so they stand. That is guaranteed to bring very bad luck, because it's an imitation of the incense sticks that are used in prayers, especially at funerals, the joss sticks. And therefore you're inviting negativity and death, which is bad. In the Middle East and North Africa, there is a strong belief in the evil eye, which is an evil omen or curse. And in some countries, 90% of people believe in it. In Eastern Europe, Russia, Latvia, Romania, statistics show that some of the highest values globally are there, with specific beliefs about seating arrangements and natural phenomena and all of that as well. So you do have to be very careful. We know that the Christian millennialists speak of certain events as being omens of the end times or of Armageddon. And so, yes, omens are believed. They say it is indicative of the riding out of the four horsemen. In Hoodoo and syncretic religions, they use natural signs and omens as part of the spiritual system. So they are absolutely believed. And within traditional folk religions all over the world, they still maintain ancient systems of reading the omens. Now, it's interesting that women are more likely to believe in New Age connections like astrology or omens. 40% of women, over 28% of men in polls that have been done. Belief in omens and superstitions is often more prevalent of those without a college degree, but that's not exclusively true. Psychology says that people turn to omens during times of high stress as a way for brains to find patterns and regain a sense of control. So what are the common modern omens then? Auspicious signs, seen as signs of impending wealth or good luck, like itchy palms, ladybirds landing on you, rainbows. Inauspicious signs, spilled salt, broken mirrors, black cat crossing your path, and you still will see people throwing salt over their shoulder to avert the negativity. There are technological omens, avoiding bad luck colors or celebrating hitches in rehearsals, and even in high-tech fields like space flight and theater, you will find these going on. Natural portents, red sky at night, sailor's delight, or groundhogs seeing their shadows are often seen as cultural tradition or common beliefs in omens. And while major modern religions and sciences often discourage or combat these superstitions, they remain deeply rooted as part of cultural identity and human pattern-seeking behavior. And of course, it is linked to eschatology. Hey there, Spooky. How are you doing? I hope you're in fine and fabulous form.
Okay, good. It's Saturday.
Yes, it is indeed. So we're doing omens today.
Oh, yeah, I should have been here earlier.
So yeah, we've been looking at what omens are and why they might be and what kinds of modern beliefs there are in omens. And of course this links to the idea of the end times, which a lot of religions believe in. Signs of the end times, when the four horsemen will ride out and the world will come to an end. Quite a lot of people believe in that. I don't know if you've ever come across anything like that in your...
I do not know anything about the omens. I was actually about to go and do some research on it. I wanted to ask you, can you tell me quickly, run through the whole thing for me? But you've already spent an hour.
The whole problem with omens really is the idea of fate. So here's the thing. Okay, you get two views. Well, let's say you get three views of fate. And it is very important, okay? So the first view of fate is that life is determined, whether it's by the gods or just destiny or whatever, that what will be, and nothing you can do will change that. You are preset in what will occur, okay? So that's determinism, which implies then that it doesn't matter what you do. You were born at the time you were meant to, you will die at the time you are meant to, no matter what. And the things that happen to you and that happen around you are meant to. That's just how it is. Too bad. Okay? On the other extreme, you have those that believe in free will, that no, everything's random and chance, and it's all about your choice. What happens depends on you. You've made your choices, and the things that are outside your control have to do with the choices of other people or just random chance. It happens. As a friend of mine loves to say, shit happens, and sometimes it happens to you. Now, in the middle of that, which is something a lot of people do also follow, is that there is a main line of destiny, which might be good or might be bad, dependent on the beliefs. But you can divert from that by your choices or by knowing what is to come. Now, omens only really make sense if you believe that you can change your future, because then having the... Well, Jacob makes a very, very good point, and I'm going to come to that in a second because it's very important. So the idea of the omen is that it's a warning, and that if you read the warning correctly, you can either more strongly get to what it's telling you about, which would be a good thing, or avoid it if it's a bad thing. Now, the old Anglo-Saxon view is that the future is like a tree. You have the main trunk, where if you do nothing, that's what's going to happen. But there are many branches, and it's possible to divert off the main or predictable view or way if you are clever enough. And if you want to, you might not want to. So there are things that can be done with suitable knowledge and action. So that's basically within the entire idea of the web of weird, and the whole point of why Odin wanted the runes, as I discussed earlier, that the runes are the patterns of the weird, which is how things will be. It's destiny, both past, present, and future. But by mastering the runes, which are the patterns of the weird, you can read the weird and figure out what is likely to happen, but you can also shape the weird and make certain things happen. So Odin's mastery of the runes was based entirely in getting control of that, because even the gods are bound by the norns, the fates. But if you know enough about the weird, you can fiddle it. And as we know, that was Odin's big thing, managing things to his advantage. So absolutely yes, Jacob, you are completely correct. And it was seen that way. But maybe might be modifiable. Now, whenever you hear Christians talking about the end times, they are literally engaging in augury. They are talking about the ability to predict what will come and when it will come. Whereas main mainline Christianity actually says you can't know that. And even there is a passage where Jesus says he can't know that either, only his Father in heaven, implying that the moment you have any kind of human shape, you can't know, and you shouldn't know. And we do see all of the mainline Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, say that you should not ever deal with omens because it shows distrust in God. So very much so that is a thing. But not everybody agrees. The idea of the biblical sorry?
Yeah, I know. But you can predict and you even can do calculations. But like you said, shit happens.
It
And
does.
sometimes a butterfly could flap its wings.
Well, now there is a very, very interesting comment that I hadn't got to yet, but absolutely, quantum probability is exactly that. A butterfly flapping its wings in Australia means it will rain in Siberia. Quantum determinism, the idea of doing certain things can cause certain things. So even science tries to predict and force futures, which in a way is a kind of hyper-scientific augury in that regard.
Things are really strange.
They are. Is
I
there
could
a
look at a
link?
guy funny, and because I looked at him, he said something to someone, that person said something to someone, that guy bumped that one, and then that guy in the car saw that, and then he went home, and then somebody got smacked in the face just because I looked at someone.
Well, exactly that. And that is your idea of quantum probability, that it's possible that we can cause events by innocuous actions 10, 15, 20, 100 times removed without realizing it. And to a certain degree, there's a certain amount of truth to that. If you're having a really bad day and you come into the office and scream at me, and then I'm all bad mood and I go and scream at somebody else who then is tasked with the decision of whether or not to fire Bob, if he had been in a good mood, he would have given Bob a chance, but because you were in a bad mood and now he's in a bad mood, so Bob got fired.
And then Bob slaughtered the family.
Exactly. These are the idea of quantum probability. Is there anything to it? Well, maybe. And in that regard, of course, then it means that ideas like the web of weird actually was
Why
accurate.
was the guy pissed off in the first place?
Well,
He stepped on a Lego block.
there you go. It can
The
be
kid
something.
put the Lego block there.
That's it. It can be something tiny. But as we go forward, we see any idea of the end times or trying to predict the end times is a form of augury. And we know that the end of the world has been predicted many, 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 many times. And for example, in 1918, a group of 8 well-known preachers produced the London Manifesto, warning of the imminent second coming of Christ, shortly after the 1917 liberation of Jerusalem by the British, that the world was going to end. It didn't, which may or may not disappoint, but nevertheless, that was absolutely a thing. People keep on saying it's going to start or that it has started, etc., etc. We know that in there the millennial, I think they call it. It's Christian, modern, but not mainline Christian. They talk about the 1,000 years, which is mentioned in the book of Revelations, but they say that's supposed to be a metaphor, not a literal thing. We should have 1,000 years of something and then the end times. And therefore we are living now in the end times because we are over the 1,000 years. Looking at the world, maybe they're right. Hard to say. We know that the Aztec calendar ended a little while ago. Remember the whole panic of Y2K? That was exactly that kind of thing. They say that you can see in who's become the world leaders now. It shows exactly that they're meant to be there because we are preparing for the end time. So the idea of this crops up all over the place and is absolutely considered to be vital. The idea of the second coming is absolutely Christian augury in action. Is it true? Well, I suppose it depends on your belief. Some people want it, some people don't. The idea of the rapture is linked to Christian augury. The idea that we need to know what will come, and there are things you need to do in order to make sure that for you it will be good as opposed to bad. That's the bottom line. And we see it in all kinds of the modern things. The Sunni Christians believe, no, the Sunni are the Islamic group that say that you're going to get 3 periods before the Day of Judgment, and they might overlap, and the dead will then rise, and judgment will happen. The first one to be resurrected will be Muhammad. Punishments will be handed out for those of you who didn't measure up. And then you may get resurrected if you were at least good enough. But maybe you won't if you were not, and you were judged by God to be bad. They say that the signs will be major and minor, including things like the black cloud of smoke that will cover the earth. Darkness shall cover the earth. This is Christian augury. There will be 3 sinkings in the earth, one in the east, one sinking in the west, and one in Arabia, whatever those sinkings might be. Then the Antichrist will turn up, the false Messiah, many of whom have been said to be. I've been told that Hitler was the Antichrist. I've heard that Trump's the Antichrist. The Masih ad-Dajjal, he shall appear with great powers as a one-eyed man, with his right eye blind and deformed. Believers will not be deceived, and he will claim to be God and hold the keys to heaven and hell, and will lead many astray. But in reality, his heaven is hell, his hell is heaven. And those who follow the important laws will be saved from him. Then Jesus will come back and kill this Antichrist, and then will come, let's see, what have we got here? The giants will be released from their prison onto the earth. They will ravage the earth and drink the seas and kill all the believers in their way. And the believers must go to the holy mountain and pray for the destruction of Gog and Magog. God will then start handing out disease and pestilence to wipe everyone else. Then the sun will rise from the west, and the beast of the earth will rise. So there's that aspect. And then will come the blowing of the trumpet, and the dead will come up from the earth, fire will come from the Holy Land, and the gathering for judgment will happen, whereupon if you're good, you're okay, and if you're not, you're screwed. So there you go, some Christian and Islamic auguries right there, even though they say you shouldn't. Now, I've just had a very, very important text come through. Give me 2 seconds, because I must respond to it. But give me your opinion on that one.
I thought we were talking about omens.
Well, it is an omen, an augury of what is to come, which apparently you're not supposed to believe in or follow, but there they are. So even those who say you shouldn't do, weirdly enough. So omens are of massive importance to people, one way or another. We certainly try to follow them.
Are they fearmongers?
Say that again?
Are they not fearmongers?
In a way. It depends on how you view your fate, because if you can change it, no, because then it's a warning, fix this and you'll be fine. Whereas if you're saying that you can't change your destiny, then you've got a problem, because you're kind of screwed. But we do it all the time. As I said, if you've picked up a newspaper and read your horoscope, astrology is huge all over the world. People read it all the time. That's augury. So your omens come in what we would call deliberate or actionable, and passive or received. So received omens are when something just happens. A black cat crosses your path. You missed my cat walking over my keyboard and crossing my path. But he's not black, so it's okay. Those are, you didn't go looking for them, but they came to you. Warnings from God or the spirits or the universe, depending on what you believe in, that are telling you, hey, careful, careful. But they only make sense if you can change the future. There's no point in knowing it if there's nothing you can do. So it implies we think you can change the future. But you also get deliberate or actionable omens where you've gone to find them. So if you take a deck of tarot cards, or you go to an Isangoma and have the bone thrown for you, that's actionable. You've deliberately gone to get an omen. And over the course of history, you've had very many types. One of the most famous was to slaughter a holy animal and then check out its liver. Haruspecie. We know among the Chthonic tribes, the use of the runes was the way they did it. Dice originally were not just a game, they were used for foretelling the future. And playing cards today originated not as a game, they came from tarot cards, which are used to predict the future. We've
earlier about you can do calculations. If you can see a meteor coming to Earth.
Well, yes. observable events absolutely count, and big celestial ones were huge and really, really important. And if you didn't properly check those out, you could really be in trouble. So eclipses, solar or lunar, comets, they were the big. Say again?
Let's say, no, just natural disasters like earthquakes, volcanoes.
Yes. But now, of course, they refer to big things. But you would also get little ones. So the fact that the wind has changed. Phrases like, it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good, comes from the idea that the changing of the wind can change fate. We see this. Did you ever read Macbeth?
Macbeth.
Shakespeare's play, where it starts with the three witches standing round the cauldron. By the pricking of my thumb, something wicked this way comes. That was the witches saying by the feeling of pins and needles in their thumbs, they knew that something evil was coming. That was the point. It was an augury. And of course, within the play,
Planning to buy a book. I'm not sure if you heard about the book. It's called Creation by Cain Vale.
okay. And what is it about, roughly?
Well, I need to read it.
No, but I mean, obviously you have an idea of what it's going to be about, seeing as you want to buy it. I mean, what's the topic?
Well, I think it's a bit of this and a bit of that.
Okay.
It's a book of creation. It's the creation of the universe.
Okay.
And you yourself, people, biology, gods, everything. Yeah.
And it was by who?
Cain Vale. The book is called Creation by Cain Vale.
Creation by
Vale.
Vale. Okay, I'm going to check that out because, yeah, I'd be interested in reading that too. There's a lot of things out there. I don't know, have you read the Celestine Prophecy?
No.
Oh, you should definitely read it. It lines up very strongly with quantum physics and the idea of synchronicity, and that by being aware of the synchronicitous events, you can guide yourself down the best possible path.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thought that book was about religion.
Kind of no, but not also not no. It's more about the idea of mastering a higher reality.
Okay. Yeah, no, then it sounds interesting.
It's very, very interesting. He gets a bit more sort of religious connected in the later books as he goes along. James Redfield, I think, wrote it. But the first book is well worth the read. It's a fascinating idea. Whether or not you believe it is entirely up to you. But either way, I know it would pique your interest as a topic of argument, at least. And it's a fairly easy read, which is quite nice. So it's written in story fashion with the journey of the main character teaching the points, which is cool. So yeah, but absolutely. So your omens may be important, and we think it today. 90% of people in the Slavic countries believe in omens. Around 40% of people in the Western world believe in omens. In Africa, of course, and India, many people, up to about 70-80% believe in omens. So clearly it's a big deal. And paying attention to them is a big deal. And making note of the ones that turn up in your life is a very big deal. Now, I'm going to say that sometimes omens are dependent. So, for example, a common one everybody knows is if a black cat crosses your path, it might bring bad luck. Probably not in my case, since we have 2 cats in this house and one of them's black. So it crosses my path about 20 times a day. So it probably has less meaning for me simply because. But if it was a strange black cat in an area where I wouldn't expect to meet one, that would be different, if that makes sense. Because then it's a message.
Maybe I've got bad luck. I don't even know about it. Because I've also got a pitch black cat.
Well, in some cultures, a black cat is very unlucky. In some cultures, it's very lucky. And that brings us to the next bit. Because the problem with many of these things, like star signs, is which ones are right. So the stars, according to the ancient Aztecs, were a very specific bunch. And the star signs that they definitely had were nothing like the ones we have today. The ones we have today come from the Greco-Roman views of the stars. But then you also had the old Anglo-Saxon star signs, which were different again. Many of the Slavic cultures have their own star signs, again, different. So which stars are the right ones to tell what's going on? And how do you know? So there are questions, you see, that are not necessarily given good answers. I think it would be difficult to decide. And then, of course, even in Western society, you've got your lunar signs, you've got your solar signs, you've got, there's a third one, I forget it now. But yeah, your planetary alignments, and they all act in different ways. Some people use all of them. It's not something I've gone a great deal into, astrology. There was far too much math for me. And I got a bit confused. I'm not a great mathematician. But it can get really, really complicated. But again, which ones? The star signs, according to the different tribes in the Native American Indian cultures, are not the same star signs that you will find in Western culture. So who's right? Which star signs are the ones that tell your future? How do you know? One thing which I get terribly irritated with is when people blend cultures without understanding the philosophies behind them. So you get people talking about, chakras in Wicca. And I'm like, no, Wicca is Old English. There are no chakras. If you want to go and find their equivalent, which works in a different philosophy, you need to talk about shield skins, which is different. And I'm not saying chakras are bad. I'm saying it comes from a very specific philosophy that you need to understand what they're saying about them. Now, I could equally say exactly the same thing about the star signs. which ones? Where are you getting them from? And what is the philosophy behind them? Because if you can't just grab them and say, right, Spooky, you're a Gemini. I've decided. Therefore, you are this, this, and this. What's the context? What's the understanding? You know, it won't otherwise make sense. Does that make any sense at all?
No, not at all.
It's like trying to explain how to fix a car using biology. No, mechanics works in a specific scientific philosophy. You need to use that to do mechanics, because that's where you will understand how it works. If you're trying to use biology, it doesn't use the same things. Now remember, we were talking about logic the other day, and I said, what's 1 plus 1? Well, mathematically it's 2. It is always 2, because that's how math works. But biologically it is not always 2. Artistically, like you said, it could be 11. Why? Because that's how it works in the different thing. So I can't take mathematical answers and drop them into biology and expect them to work, because it won't, because the philosophy behind is different. It's not that they're wrong. Mathematics is mathematics and it's right, it works very well. It just doesn't work biologically, because biology runs on a different system for important reasons. And we can apply that to everything, especially omens. So context matters. We need to understand where that comes from, and you can't even begin until you also understand your view of fate. Because if you say your fate is absolute and determined, omens are a waste of time. You're not changing anything. You can't. Your fate is set. If your fate can be changed, then they're valuable. Knowing what might come and when to change it would be useful if it was something you didn't want.
But it's so hard, you know. 'Cause you've got no idea what you're doing. I mean, you
Well,
think you can change it for the better, but actually you made it worse.
that is exactly why, in a great many ways, they say that you need to, well, in the Chthonic, for example, you need to master the runes, because then they will tell you what the future will hold and you can make a good decision. Among the Chinese, you use the hexagrams by casting the I Ching, which will then tell you what the fate will be and how to make sure you fit to it correctly. So absolutely, we create ways to actively get omens. We don't just wait until the gods tell us something. We go and make them for ourselves. The idea of casting the bones is to make an augury in order to understand what will come, so you can make a decent decision.
So the rest told you that I'm kidding.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just clicked on it to look at what it says, because I forgot actually what it's
Okay.
all about. And it's a manifestation of creation. It's forbidden neuroscience knowledge that reveals the real brain codes.
Ah, yes. Now I understand. Yes, this is absolutely, and more than one culture has come up with it, and it is the entire psychology behind affirmations. In very brief, The idea that by saying the right things at the right time in the right way, it directs you to the right outcome. And there is a certain amount of truth to it. If you are always terribly negative about yourself, you will become depressed and unsuccessful because you won't try. Whereas if you're always pro and, encouraging and all the rest of it, you do tend to succeed more because you put more effort in, if that makes sense. There might be more to it through quantum synchronicity. Maybe you do. And yeah, that's the short. Now, how to actually do it, you need a book to explain it, because I don't know.
The man from this motivational speaker, I thought she was just totally awful. She's not supposed to be a motivational speaker.
Okay.
Because she said, just because you don't give up doesn't mean you're going to achieve your goals.
That sounds like a bit counter to being a motivational speaker.
Yes. I mean,
not giving up is the primary thing.
Now she's just telling them, okay, give up because you're never going to reach your goals.
Exactly. Hey Oreo, hey Hamza, welcome. I think that in terms of motivation, telling people that not giving up is bad. You missed your brief in that right off bat. I'm going to call that one as a failure.
Because you don't give up doesn't mean you're going to get your goals. That's just awful. That's not what a motivational speaker is supposed to say.
No. Look, I suppose in terms of real life, it's kind of true as well.
It is true.
But
for a motivational speaker, it's not something they have to say.
No, and I'd say that all the other things that you would have to do to go along with not giving up in order to achieve your goals, you would stop the moment you gave up. So it's not just not giving up. There are other things, but not giving up is kind of fundamental. So there is that. You're absolutely correct. So
Yeah, no, I was just laughing when I heard her say that. I mean,
I'm going to call it and say that she failed in her exams to be a motivational speaker.
What she said is absolutely true. I mean, just because you don't give up doesn't mean you're going to reach your goals. That is true.
But conversely, if you do give up, you won't reach your goal.
Yeah.
I mean, there you are.
It's not something you tell people to try and motivate them.
No, absolutely true there. I think that whoever it was could have done a lot better. But absolutely. Now, in a way, you might even argue that motivational things like affirmations and what have you are, in a sense, proactive auguries, whereby instead of waiting for the omen of what is to come, you're trying to create the omen to force that thing to come.
Okay.
And we see this, for example, in prayers, which you end with Amen. So let it be. We see it in the famous abracadabra spell, because Avada Kedavra which they stole for Harry Potter, actually comes from old, I think it's Persian, which literally means, as I speak it, so let it be. That you are speaking into existence a reality, and by speaking it, you're bringing it to yourself, which is absolutely common in so many cultures. The idea that you can cause a thing to be more likely, at least, or to happen by speaking it into existence, which is kind of what motivational speaking is. You're encouraging people until they achieve by motivation. Proactive augury, in a way. But yeah, what she did was deactive augury, the exact opposite of it, by saying just give up and it won't happen. Well, yeah, of course it won't, you gave up. Pretty dumb.
I'm sure a couple of people walked away then and said, okay, they're going to give up because they're not going to reach the goals anyway, so why carry on?
Bother? Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, absolute truth there. So yeah, that's omens. I think that there's a lot of them. Some of them can be really, really, I'm going to say dodgy. I was almost going to say ridiculous, but some of them are a bit ridiculous, ranging right through to the very, very serious. So you get all different types. How a chicken eats its grain was a method used for determining things. Is it a good method? Well, given the brain power of the average chicken, I've always seen them as nature's version of a randomizer. Because really and truly, they don't know much. So I would be very concerned if I'm using chickens to determine my entire life future. I wouldn't be very happy with that. But I suppose, to each their own.
Do we believe in something like the end times?
I'm going to have to give you this answer. Okay. Yes, on a personal level, you will have an end time. Whether or not there is an end time for the whole world is irrelevant. You will have one, and that's the important one. Whether or not it happens for the rest of the entire world at the same time doesn't actually matter. Your one matters very much to you. So trying to worry at all about the end times for the world, to me, that's a very good point. Can they lay golden eggs? Maybe. To me, it's a silly question. I think it's an irrelevancy to me. Also because it implies that God is constrained to time. But if God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omnicognizant, omni, he's not constrained to time. Therefore, time is meaningless in terms of. So anything that involves action by God directly cannot be temporally quantified because God does not
So your
exist.
answer is basically no.
I'm saying it's a
But
silly. It's not that not no. I'm saying it's a non-question because
okay,
it
I'm
makes
gonna
no
say
sense.
there will be an Armageddon one day, but not by a deity.
Well, possibly, um, very probably by human hand, because humans are like that. You
How
know,
many
find
times
that
has it happened before? Civilizations has sprung
risen.
up all over the world, and all over the world they died.
Absolutely. You know, you show a human being the self-destruct button, the first thing they do is press it, and the second thing that they do is ask, should I have pressed that? You know, we are not known for our survival traits in
Mm.
many, many ways.
And it could happen in different forms. I would guess the most common one would probably be diseases, spread viruses spreading out, killing
Could be.
well many people. And the Black Plague took out what 1/3 of the world.
It did. It absolutely did. So you have a very good point. I suspect the next one is going to be of human origin, though. Our science has reached a point. Many of these end of the worlds happen for religious reasons. So religion might be a good cause for the end of the world. Um, but natural disasters, sure. We nearly saw the end of the world twice in our history with World War One and World War Two. I mean, they could have gone very south. So, is it
Oh,
possible?
that bad. I mean, what happened with it? World War II was probably great for people, for mankind. Before that, people were living in the Great Depression,
Well, it
and
certainly thinned the herds.
well, the World War II made people stronger or believe that they are more capable of what they were.
I do agree with that, yes,
Technology advanced at a rapid pace.
true. I
20
think
years later, they landed on the moon because of it.
that is true. I do think as well, it proves Jared Diamond correct for his theories that what makes you strong and capable as a culture is war.
Yeah. Do you know Tommy Robinson?
Yes,
Yeah, today they had a big event in London.
okay.
They want to revive Christianity, but these were ordinary people that wants to revive Christianity because the churches in London and in the UK have all gone woke.
Yes, I actually had this exact argument in a meeting that we had where the heads of the order I belonged to, this is when I was in the church, the heads of the order came and asked for my opinion and the other students on what do they think would be the wise way forward for the future of the church, that many struggled to keep up with the requirements of Catholicism. Should we make it easier? And I stood up, much to everybody's upset, and said, if you want things to get better, make it harder, not easier. Because if you make it easier, people will do less. And if you make it much, much tougher, maybe people will do enough. And nobody liked what I said. And yeah, I was shouted down because they all wanted to, you know, they wanted it to be easier. it must be easier to be a Christian priest, that you must be allowed to, have girlfriends and marry and own stuff and. Sorry, no, maybe for the diocesans, but if you're in an order, we follow the order for a reason. We do it because it's hard. Either you do it or you don't. And if you struggle, do it harder. And no,
Why did you leave Christianity?
because of my issues with the religion, not the spirituality. The religion, and religion is made by people, and the people proved to be shit. And I said, well, I'm
Yeah.
done with a lot of you.
Well, in England, they're not trying to revive Christianity. A lot of them gave up because the churches, they went completely woke. Some of the priests they are transgenders.
Exactly.
Bishops are transgenders. They encourage gay marriage and killing babies.
Exactly.
They are more happy for gay couple marrying than a male and a female marrying.
Exactly. And that is
Yeah.
no way to be a church. Either you stick to your religion and do it properly, or you don't. And really and truly, that is the bottom line. And you can see how society has collapsed without strict rules. Everyone's all about rights. When was the last time you heard about duties?
Yeah.
Duties are what make rights. Nobody wants to do the duty. Everybody wants the rights. Why should you have rights? You don't deserve them. You've done none of the duties.
People are fighting for each other's rights, but they're not fighting for them to do their duties.
Yes. And it comes to the point, and here's the big question. If it's between your rights and my rights, whose rights are more right? And the answer is, who did the duties?
Yeah,
That's,
but that's not how the current world is.
of course not.
Current world is that the lazy one gets everything, and the hardworking one must pay for the lazy one.
Exactly. And there was a post I saw today where it was an advert somebody had put up in America where they said, how come we can have Pride Month when they've done bugger all for America, but we can't have Veteran Month for the people who sacrificed their lives to protect our culture?
Yeah.
It's a fair point. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being gay, but your being gay hasn't made my life better. But the veteran has made my life better. Surely that deserves more celebration than your life choices.
Yeah,
You know,
that's really sick.
I'm not
It's
saying.
backwards.
Yeah, it is. It's totally backwards. I'm not saying don't be gay. If you want to be gay, be gay. That's wonderful. I have no problem whatsoever. I've got plenty of gay
Yeah,
friends.
but it's got nothing to do with me.
Exactly. It's your issue, not society's issue. So I got into serious trouble because Trump's
Should I go and celebrate what that guy is doing in his bed, in his
Exactly.
room?
It's stupid. They put up a question because Trump wants to remove pride flags from federal buildings, and they were arguing the pros, the cons, and I went on, I said, the only flag that should ever be allowed in a federal building is the American flag, because that flag is the one that represents the federation. All other flags are sectarian and don't belong to everybody, and therefore should, no matter what flag it is, should be banned from a federal building. Either it's a federal building or it's not federal. End. The only exception is when a foreign political power is visiting and you are showing that they are there meeting with the Federation. So if South Africa goes to America, you'll have the American flag and the South African flag to show that the two powers are talking. That's allowed. But otherwise, federal flag only, none other at all. Finish. Because in America, while many people can be gay, and they're great people and we love them all, not all of America is gay, which means that the pride flag does not represent the Federation. End of story. Any minorities...
I think it's all just a brainwash
It is.
game
It is.
to reduce population. They don't want people to have children. And that's why they made up all of this woke nonsense.
It is.
So people can chop their dicks off and not have babies. And
It's a brainwash game, and not just for the sexual gender thing, for most of it nowadays. I was reading a very interesting article about why it's imperative, this was by John F. Kennedy, why it is imperative to protect the Israelis. Without protecting the Israelis, the Middle East is lost. John F. Kennedy. Now we've flipped it over. They are the evil. Hang on, when did history change?
well, I'm guessing it's powers from the Middle East that is also controlling this whole woke agenda,
But not
making
only,
sure people.
there is that, but not only that, people's view of the history is dependent on the politics of the day. We keep changing.
We know the kids are not being taught actual history. They are being taught to be activists.
Yes, for the politics of the day, not for the reality. We know that for absolute certain. Yes, it is. It's a load of crap. And if people actually go and look at history, like that discussion we had the other day, the most evil man in history was Adolf Hitler. No, he was a lightweight. I'm not saying what he did was good, but he was a lightweight. There were far, far more people that did way worse that are never even mentioned. You know, I'm just saying. And some of them were the guys doing the saying, he's the bad guy, pointing that out, as we discovered.
Yeah, but he was history.
So yes, it is all a big lark. Nevertheless, omens. I think they might be real. I do, myself personally. Mostly it's a belief, by which I'm saying, therefore, I don't know and can't prove scientifically, but I do. I don't know if you do, but it implies as well far more free will, which I think for me is very, very important indeed. So that's what I have got out of all of this live. I don't know. What do you think? Spooky? Yes or no to omens?
Or is omens like a religion, a culture, or I'm not sure what omens is.
Omens are a means whereby you can predict the future so that you can change what is destined to be by knowing what might come about, that we are not determined.
Well, I would say yes in the micro scale.
Okay. When you say micro scale, micro in terms of only in terms of like just you and not the whole of humanity, or micro in small ways but not in general?
Not in general.
Okay.
Like I can predict the cat is gonna bump the glass off, so I can just move the glass.
Right. Okay. Okay, I see what you mean. Reasonable. But you
But I
don't.
don't. It is possible. I mean, you could change the future, but the future is also random.
Well, random until we direct it, maybe.
Yeah. But like you said, shit happens.
It does as well. So maybe it's a mix of things.
You can't always predict what shit is going to happen. It just pops up.
There is that. It's a hard question to answer, I suppose. But it's one which absolutely has been the question for cultures for centuries. So maybe it is an important one. And maybe with quantum determinism, we might be able to answer it. Maybe it is all down to quantum physics. I don't know. Quantum science. Maybe it's true. But with that, we have achieved the end of all I have to share on omens. I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun, it was interesting. And we will be back on Monday with something new or maybe old. With strange bones, it will be weird and it will be wonderful. And until then, my friends, sleep sweet, sleep deep, and maybe dream of the future. Good night.
Cool. Good night. Enjoy your night. Catch you on Monday, maybe.
Monday it is.
Okay. Cool.